I have a confession to make. When I was in my early 20s, I was involved in a profession called modeling. And in this profession, they had me do things like pose for the camera and walk down a runway, and it's all very embarrassing. But they trained me. They actually trained me how to do these things. I had to learn how to pose, and I had to learn to walk the runway and turn to the left, and then also turn to the right. Both are very challenging. And I had to learn how to do something called a smolder. And if you don't know what a smolder is, it's this very strange thing that I'm doing with my eyes right now. It kind of looks like you're in pain and you're trying to hold it together. But I had to learn how to do these things, and what I loved about modeling was that it allowed me to put on this mask. And I thought that rather than people seeing my insecurities, they would just see a model. And that worked, I think, for some people. That's how some people saw me. There were some people, though, that saw right through it. And I had a friend, an old friend from high school, and he saw through it. And I think he was also kind of jealous that I was getting paid money to do this and hang out with good-looking people. So I think he was jealous, but he did see through it. And his response was pretty much to make fun of me, right? And what I did with that was I kind of blew him off. Said, "Whatever, you just don't get it." And I doubled down. And I probably put the mask on even thicker. But I had a different experience with a different man, and I was getting into acting as well. So this was, I think, my first acting class, and my acting coach, one of the best actors I know, he saw through it. And so I get up in class, and I'm doing this mock audition, right? So that everybody's sitting around watching me, and the acting coach is right there. And I get this performance, and I'm like, yeah, that was pretty good. I think I nailed it. And my acting coach, he as gently and with such delicacy, because he knows how fragile and insecure I am, he says, hey John, you're coming from the modeling world, right? And you're doing this thing where you're like smoldering the entire time you're doing this audition, and it kind of looks like you're trying to seduce the camera for a minute and a half while you try and sell this bar of soap. And it really doesn't look as good as you think. And I tell you what, because this guy actually loved me and approached me with humility and gentleness, I actually received it. And I said, okay, this mask isn't really working for me as well as I thought. Why do I tell this story? Of course, it's to allow you to laugh at my past, because that's fun. But also in this passage, we're going to see three different interactions that Jesus is going to talk about. And in each of these, we see people using sort of their spiritual vision to assess people, and then they do something with that assessment. So what I want to look at is, what's going on in their heart when they're making these assessments, and then what do they do with them? And what we'll see is that what we do with our spiritual eyes, the way we look at other people and what we do with that, it can either destroy and ravage our community, or it can actually be a way that we can join with God in renewing our community. So I've labeled these three interactions. Roughly verses 1 to 5 is going to be the blind judge. And then in verse 5, we're going to see the clear-eyed brother. And then in verse 6, I have something called the prudent zookeeper. So we'll dive in and we'll just talk about the blind hypocrite. So the command is pretty clear enough. Don't judge so that you not be judged. But the first question to ask is, what does Jesus even mean by judgment? What does this mean? Is this an absolute, unqualified prohibition against critically assessing anybody or their behavior and responding to it at all? This is of course actually really absurd when you try and interpret it this way, but our culture does it all the time, and we do it all the time. So I would like to give three reasons why I think this is a really bad way to interpret this this type of judgment, this passage in this way. The first thing we'll look at is just the logic of it. So we'll compare Christian judgment and culture's judgment. So the Bible's conception of judgment is that God is the judge. He sets the standard of what is good for humans, what is bad for humans, the way we should behave and think. So he sets the standard, but then he's also the one that determines whether we're meeting that standard. He's the one that pronounces the verdict on us, depending on how we do. Culture, on the other hand, they say, I am God. I'm the one that sets the standard. I determine what's good and what's bad. And then I'm also going to be the one that says whether or not I uphold that standard that I myself set. So we have a bunch of me gods all around our culture. And I think one of the first commandments of the me God is, thou shalt not tell me what to do. And if you think about this, you have a bunch of me gods walking around, it breaks down pretty quickly, because if you can't tell me what to do, then I also can't tell you not to tell me what to do. And so we have the little Spider-Man meme where everyone's just pointing at each other, saying, no, you can't tell me what to do, and no, you can't tell me not to tell you what to do. And it goes on and on and on. And of course, it doesn't work out logically, but also practically, this doesn't work out. So society wouldn't do very well if we actually lived up to this kind of standard. And so imagine with me for a moment a scenario. I've got three new friends. They don't really know each other all that well, but they're new buddies. They get together, and let's say they're outside. And the first one, he pulls out a cigar. And he doesn't know the other guys. Maybe they don't like cigars, so he's a little apprehensive. I'm looking at Steven. He pulls out the cigar. He's a little apprehensive, and maybe they don't approve of this. And he kind of looks around. He's like, I do this on special occasions. I don't really think this is a big deal. And they're like, oh, no, not at all. That's great. You do you. It's like, okay, so he lights up. And the next guy, he pulls out some weed. He pulls out some marijuana. He's about to roll up a blunt and light it up. And the other guys are kind of looking at him. He's like, what? Don't judge me. I do this for my anxiety. It helps me calm down. They're like, oh, yeah, no, that's fine. You do you. We're not here to judge you. The third guy, he pulls out a metal spoon, a lighter, a syringe, a little bag. You know where this is going. And the other guys are really uncomfortable at this. And they think, they're kind of whispering to each other, should we say something? Well, Jesus says not to judge. I guess we should just be in hearty support of this guy as he destroys his life. And they say, yeah, no, man, you do you. You got to do what you got to do. Obviously, this is not love. No one thinks this way. Other people that are the third guy, they might think that way. But practically, this is not going to work. And so we have to go through life critically assessing other people and ourselves and behaviors and making judgment calls about these things. The third reason why this is a bad interpretation is simply that you can get to verse 6, and Jesus obviously expects us to make judgment calls about who are pigs and dogs. Or in a couple of weeks, we'll talk about false prophets. And we have to discern who these people are. So this kind of judgment is not what Jesus is talking about. What Jesus is talking about is condemnation. We'll see this a lot more clearly in the parallel passage in Luke 6, where Jesus says, judge not, so that you not be judged, condemn not, so that you not be condemned. So what does this look like? This is about pronouncing the final judgment, the final verdict on people. And this might look like someone has committed a crime that you think is so egregious that God could never forgive them. The only way that God could ever look at this person is in light of this crime that they've committed. Maybe someone has hurt you so badly that you just think they can never change. They will always be that person. Maybe a kid has hurt one of your children, and in an effort to console them, you say, it's okay, honey. They're a loser, and their life is never going anywhere. And it's great because you comforted your child, but now you're teaching them how to grow up condemning and writing anybody off, whoever hurts them. This isn't just a religious thing. This is a human thing. And the irony about our culture, which really hates judgment, is that they do this all the time. They're actually incredibly good at this. This is called the cancel culture, right? If you do something that culture disagrees with, then goodbye, you're no longer important, and I think you're like scrubbed from the internet or something. You're certainly rebuked a lot. But Jesus says, he doesn't deny that there's judgment coming. There's absolutely a judgment coming. But he wants you to know that this is not your role. This is not your role to condemn people. So the warning is clear enough. Don't judge. But what leads to this kind of hypercritical judgmentalism to begin with? Jesus gives us the metaphor, the plank, the beam, the log in your eye, and the speck. So we should ask, what is the log? What is the speck? And I think if we step back and we look at who Jesus' audience is, say, okay, who throughout the whole Gospel of Matthew, who does Jesus continually critique? Well, he does this with the Pharisees and the scribes, so that's like a good place to start, I think. What does Jesus typically critique them about? We'll see over and over again, he'll criticize them for their hypocrisy and also for their impaired vision, their blindness. Matthew 15:13, talking about the Pharisees, he'll tell his disciples, hey, don't let them bother you. They're blind guides, and if the blind lead the blind, both will fall into a pit. Then 5 times in Matthew 23, Jesus will say to the scribes and Pharisees, say, woe to you blind guides, you blind fools, you blind men, you blind guides, you blind Pharisee. These guys aren't literally blind, obviously, they're spiritually blind. They don't see that they need Jesus. They don't see that they need much of anything. It's the healthy versus the sick, right? The people who think they're healthy, they don't need a doctor. It's the people that are sick that need the doctor. And this blindness is self-righteousness. So I think I'm fine, and I don't need Jesus. I don't need God. I don't need anyone else. And I think that Jesus looks out on his audience, and he sees the tax collectors, he sees the prostitutes, he sees the drunks, he sees the sinners, right? And he looks and he sees the Pharisees, the scribes, the religious elite. He says, I can do something for y'all. Like, you have anger issues. You did crime. You did time for a violent crime, right? Like, I can do something about that. Like, come here. Like, let me wipe that out of your eye. This is no problem for me. Actually, all of the people in my community are sinners, and I'm dealing with their sin. You're going to fit in just great. Absolutely, we'll need to do some practical things, figure out how to lead you out of these sins. But this is no problem. You have a porn addiction? No problem. Let me wipe it out from your eye. But he gets the religious elite, and he's just like, what can I give you? Like, you don't need anything. You don't think you need anything. I'm of no value to you. And you think that you're fit to lead my people. And you've got it wrong from the start. You're totally blind. You're totally blind. The self-righteousness is the log. This other stuff is just specks, and this is no problem for me. I can deal with that. If you don't think you need me, then I can't help you at all. If you don't think you need a Savior, you can't be saved. So how do we get from being a hypocritical and blind judge to being a clear-eyed brother? Because in verse 5, you actually see that happen. Jesus leaves this open of like, hey, if you take it out, then you can see clearly and help your brother. How do we get there? What does that process look like? How do we know if we're being genuine or we're still self-righteous when we're trying to do this? Well, self-righteousness is an internal reality. This is a disposition of our heart. And that disposition of our heart leads to this action of condemning other people. So what we need a different heart disposition that leads to a better action. And what is that alternative? If we go again to Luke 6, we'll see that Jesus contrasts
judgment and condemnation with forgiveness and mercy. So what we need is a merciful heart. We need to trade self-righteousness to get a merciful heart. How do we do that? Well, one really good way is if we look at ourselves, if we start critically assessing ourselves against the standard that God has. And if you've been paying attention to the Sermon on the Mount, you'll see the standard is really, really high, right? Lust in my heart when I look at a woman, that's actually adultery. If I call my brother a fool, that's pretty much murder. Jesus says, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. So the standard is perfection. And so when I compare myself to this standard, I very quickly see I don't meet up to it at all. What do I do with that? This is where the mercy comes in. I see that despite the fact that I don't live up to it, God responds with mercy to anyone who will look to him in faith. And so what happens is this mercy that I've been shown starts to change me. It starts to make it more instinctual that I show mercy to other people as well. So now if the log is removed, I can actually approach my brothers and sisters and say, like with humility and gentleness and mercy, I can say, hey, bro, you have a speck in your eye. Can we talk about that? And it's not about me. It's not about me being better than them. It's just like I care about you. And you say you believe in Jesus, so let's talk about this. Let's see how we can walk out our faith. So the mercy of God trains us to be merciful. But then also this idea of the judgment coming back around like a boomerang. I don't know about y'all, that makes me slow down really, really quick. When I'm looking at one of my brothers and sisters and I see something that they're doing, my immediate response is like, oh, they're worthless. That's my quick response. The judgment coming back around, it slows me down. And it gives me a chance to actually apply the gospel that I say that I believe in. And I think, yeah, I do not want to be judged in this way. I want to be shown mercy. And I have been shown mercy. So I'm absolutely going to show mercy to my friends, to my brothers. It's a heart check. It's a jarring heart check. So a little example, illustration. Maybe a couple months before the summer started, Chase asked me, hey, John, would you like to preach a couple times this summer? And I said, yeah, that sounds fun. Now the reality is starting to set in that I'm going to be preaching this summer, okay? So what do you think happens when I'm sitting where y'all are sitting the next Sunday, and I listen to, I don't know if it was Chase or Taylor, the usual thoughts of like, oh, I would have said that differently. I probably would have done that better. I slow down real quick. I start treading very lightly, and I'm like tiptoeing. I don't even want to approach the point where I pronounce a verdict on how they preach, because I want to be shown mercy when I'm preaching as well. And of course, most of this, especially if you've been a Christian for a while, this stuff is just going to be happening in your heart. You may not really be saying these things out loud. These are heart realities. I don't think I've ever told Chase or Taylor that they're a terrible preacher. But honestly, I've thought it. That's just genuine. That's me. God is merciful. Thankfully. That is true. So his mercy trains us to be more merciful. But the warning of judgment, it slows us down long enough to remember the gospel and allow that to shape our actions. I do want to address, though, who these teachings are for. If you'll notice, when Jesus talks about wiping the speck out of his brother's eyes, he says brother. This is a community thing. Jesus is describing what a healthy Christian community looks like as we navigate through and deal with the problem of sin within the community. We need to be careful about trying to apply this stuff to people who aren't in the community. It might be appropriate sometimes, but tread lightly. This is a beautiful idea for the church, and this is one of the reasons that we have D groups, right? A handful of of men or women that we do life with, we meet with regularly. They know our story. They know what our life's about. They know our weaknesses and our strengths, so that when we're going through things, we can point these things out in each other's eyes. And we can do it lovingly, because I've already told Pavel, like, hey, I'm a terrible person. Oh, by the way, sometimes you're a little impatient. It's a lot easier for Pavel to receive that if I've opened up my heart and said, look, I know my weaknesses. Like, tell me more. I don't really want to hear it, but I know I need to hear it, so tell me. D groups are one way here at Sojourn that we do that. But in general, this is a beautiful story arc that we see from going from this hypocritical judge to a clear-eyed brother who's like a helpful member in the Christian community. It's a beautiful picture, and there should be no problems, right? If we all just do this, it'd be great. If everybody played by the rules of the kingdom, then things would just go spectacularly. That would be nice, but that's not how it works. And I think that this is what's going on with the piggies and the puppies, right? Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. So Jesus knows that there will be people who reject this kingdom ethic. There will be people who they think they need mercy. Instead, they will see it as a threat. Because if you approach someone who doesn't think they should be condemned, and you offer them mercy, you offer it to them in humility, you offer them mercy, they will hear that as condemnation. And so if you don't think you need mercy, you won't like being approached with mercy, because of what the underlying implication of that is. And so if you're going about in Christian community thinking that everyone's going to play by these rules of humility, mercy, forgiveness, man, you will be shocked when you're actually assaulted with pride and then condemnation. You'll be shocked. There will be times when you might approach a believer, right? Someone who professes that Jesus is their Lord and their Savior, and you approach them like you would one of your brothers, and you say, hey, brother, sister, like, you have a speck in your eye. Like, let's talk about that. And they turn around and they're going to attack you. They're going to totally reject this pearl. They want nothing to do with it. And I think that Jesus is cautioning his disciples to say, hey, there's a certain time in which you may need to just walk away. Like, let God judge the outsider. Let God judge them. So, oh man, it would be so great if we could just sit back and look at these three roles, these three interactions, and say, like, yeah, I'm the clear-eyed brother. That would be really nice. I'm the prudent zookeeper. Occasionally, maybe I have a speck in my eye, and that needs to be wiped out. But no, we're obviously a mixed bag. It's rarely is it as black and white as we would like it to be. And I think that there's a reason Jesus spends the most amount of time on the hypocrite, the condemning guy, the 5 verses. Because this is, I think, what we're most prone to do. This is where we need to be called out most. Where all these characters combined, certainly. I tend to find myself in a cycle where, in some way, shape, or form, I start out as like the critical judge, and I'm humbled by the beauty of the gospel and God's mercy. I'm humbled by that, and I'm doing well, and I can actually approach my brothers and sisters, and I can be helpful to them. And then I'm like, wow, I'm really helpful in my community. People think really highly of me. This is great. And then I get proud and self-righteous, and then someone's like, hey, bro, you're proud and you're self-righteous. And then, like I start attacking people, right? And we do this cycle over and over again. The Pharisees, certainly they're a good archetype of this. They exemplify this very well, but man, if we don't think that we're guilty of the same thing, then I don't know what we think. We're wrong. All the time, we're just going to attack other people's sins onto them and just think that they never change. So we go over in front, And what happens is that churches fracture, right? Churches fracture. The home, the relationships in the home, they split apart. There's tension. There's constant friction there. We always think that I'm the clear-eyed one, the other person, he's the blind one. Relationships, they take decades to heal, because when you turned around and started attacking someone, you said something that you can't take back. And it takes a really, really long time to heal. Brothers and sisters, they part ways because they mislabel each other as a pig or a dog who's dangerous to them. You're a threat, you're toxic, I want nothing to do with you, stay away. In short, we reject Jesus' kingdom, and it all starts because in our hearts we don't think that we need it, we think that we're more fit to judge the world. So what do we do from here? We make a mess of our communities. We don't live up to this standard. What do we do? Well, we look to Jesus, obviously. Jesus is the only one who was actually fit to be the judge. He lived up to the standard. He's the only one that is fit to be the judge. He's also the only one that has legitimate grounds to condemn every single one of us. But Jesus says in John, I didn't come to condemn the world, but to save it. Right? In our place, he stands condemned. For anyone at all that would look to him by faith. He takes the condemnation for us, and he endures the wrath of God that was supposed to be poured out on us. He does this for us. But make no mistake, judgment is real. And while we often like to just think of Jesus as the guy who says, I'm not coming to judge, I'm coming to save, immediately after this, he says that in the last day there will be judgment. There will be judgment for those who reject him and reject his word. And so to take only the Jesus that makes us feel happy and light and fluffy and ignore the other side of Jesus is not to take Jesus at all. That's not who Jesus is. You have to take the whole of the man, take all of his words seriously. So Jesus thinks that judgment is coming. And so we have two options, right? If you think that you can meet the standard, if you think you can live up to what it means to be a human being, to be the image of God, if you think that your works mean something to God, you can approach God in the judgment and say, I have merited your love. You deserve, I deserve to be let in to your kingdom. You can do that. Option number two is you fall on your face and say, look, I have nothing. Like my best works, they're just filthy rags to you. The most generous moments of my life, my kindest moments, all of this is just trash before you. But your son said that he died for me. And if I look to him in faith and follow him, then I can approach you and call you my father. Those are your two options. So if you're here this morning and you haven't bent the knee to King Jesus, right? Maybe you grew up as a Christian, you think you are a Christian, you don't really know, you're really not sure where you stand, or you're adamantly opposed to it. And I want to make it as clear as possible that Jesus offers this invitation, right? His arms they're open wide. He's open wide, stripped naked, pinned to a cross. That's your invitation. And he's saying, if you come to me, like you can be called a son or a daughter. So I would encourage you, count the cost, understand what it might mean to give up your way of doing life, to stop being the master of your own world, and fall on your knees and just say, yes. Like, you love me, you died for me. I want what you have for me. I plead with you to consider that this morning. Let me pray.